child, I was brought up reading the Bible. The Bible used to mean quite a lot to me. And we had a lot of belief in the power and value of the Bible. We believed that if you read it, it would make you a better person. We believed that you could give it to someone else and it would have an impact. But somehow something has changed. I don't know why, but somehow the Bible has lost its place in our community, in our culture. We've become people who are disconnected from that story. If you give the Bible to a stranger now, they're more likely to find it horrifying than to find it speaking to them powerfully. I remember one time I had some friends come along who said they wanted to read the Bible, and I said to this lady, the wife of the pair, I said, well, if you want to read the New Testament first, not the Old Testament. And she said, no, I always start a book at the beginning. And she started to read it, and I said to the next week, how are you finding it? She said, I don't think I like this God. He's always smiting people. And that's, the Bible often comes across so strangely to people who are not brought up in that culture. And I even find that people who believe are not reading the Bible like they used to. They seem to find it either cliched or dry. They're not sort of getting the life out of it. When I read it, I still find it comes to life to me. Yet I find that a lot of people who used to read it a lot don't read it much anymore. What's gone wrong with the Bible? And I find that preachers too, they don't use the Bible properly. They don't read the Bible as they should. Or, not all preachers, of course, most preachers do a fantastic job. But I find many preachers who sort of preach their own ideas and back it up with proof texts here and there without reading the Bible as the story that it's meant to be. Have you ever noticed that when young Indigenous people get into trouble, that the elders of the community try to seek to get them to come and learn the culture, to be reconnected with the culture that they come from, to learn the stories that were part of their upbringing or part of their culture's background? Because when they find their place in the story, it gives their life a context and a meaning, and they start to care about what they do and who they're affecting and how their actions and choices are affecting other people in the community. They can become better people if they know who they are, what they're meant to be. That's the way Indigenous people connect to their story. And it worries me that in our Australian society, perhaps the European society worldwide, the Western civilization, that we're losing connection with the story that formed us. Christianity formed us in so many ways. And when we lose connection with that story, then we become different people. We become people who are formed by Twitter, people who are formed by Facebook, YouTube, the loudest voices, the latest conspiracy theories. We don't have something to hang on to which gives us our place and our meaning. I think there's always been a search for humans to find their place of meaning. Lately I've been reading the poetry of Judith Wright. I bought this book when I was in high school, and she wrote poems in 1953 before I was born that still speak to me powerfully today. Here's one called Birds. I won't read the whole thing, I'll print it in the notes below. She says, whatever the bird is perfect in the bird. And she talks about a kestrel, a thrush, round as a mother, and the fruit green parrot. She says, all are what bird is and do not reach beyond bird. Whatever the bird does is right for the bird to do. The cruel kestrel, dividing in his hunger the sky. The thrush, in the trembling dew beginning to sing. The parrot, clinging and quarrelling and veiling his queer eye. All these are as birds are and good for birds to do. But I am torn and beleaguered by my own people. The blood that feeds my heart is the blood they gave me, and my heart is the house where they gather, and they're fighting for dominion. They're all different. They all have a wish and a will to save me, to turn me into the ways of other people. But let's stop there for a second. She's saying here that birds just are, and that's good, and birds just do, and that's what birds do. But it's different for humans. We have stories from our past, people in our past who want us to become good. They want to save us. They want to have dominion in our lives and help us to be the person they want us to be, whoever these mythical people are, just ancestors and people who are the custodians of the tradition and culture to which we belong. They're trying to turn us into the ways of other people, she says. And then she finishes with this. If I could leave their battleground for the forest of a bird, I could melt the past, the present and the future in one, and find the words that lie behind all these languages. Then I could fuse my passions into one clear stone and be simple to myself as the bird is to the bird. She's wishing there that she could be like a bird and not have to choose what story she belongs to, what sort of person she is. I'm sorry, Judith, you don't get that choice. In the very next poem, she talks about an Aboriginal person. A very old man who must have been around the farm when she was growing up in New England in Australia. And she says, the very old man has lost the clues that led into the country of his mind. Its people are all dead. He stumbles through the days of bright and sorrowful winter. I can just picture that Aboriginal person who's lost his people and his country's been changed and he feels like he's lost the country of his mind and it's all become winter. And later on she says to him, he leans on the fence, the old, old man gone queer, waiting for the word or his death to come near. If he can catch either of them, his eyes will suddenly clear. Wow, that's powerful. If he can just find the story that he belongs to, hear the word, his eyes will become clear. But he's probably going to find death before he finds that word.
I believe the Bible tells a story which helps us to find our place in life, similar to the way the Aboriginal people's stories and songlines help them to find their place in their culture. And the story the Bible tells, you've got to be careful how you regard the Bible. What is it? There's a website called bibleproject.com, and it's a very good website, I recommend it, and has wonderful videos, sketched videos which help explain things. And their definition of what the Bible is, in one of their introductory videos, they say the Bible is not a behaviour manual. It's not a theology dictionary. It's not a grab bag of inspirational quotes. All of those things that the Bible is often used for, but that's not what it's intended for. What they say instead is that the Bible is one epic narrative about how God has appointed humanity as his partners to oversee this amazing world. And it's about how we have ruined that partnership and how God is restoring it and us through Jesus. That's sort of the epic story of the Bible, and we need to find our place therein. And there's one part in the Bible where it says, reading the Bible is like looking into a mirror. When you look in a mirror, you can see what you need to do. Supposing I had mud on my face, and I go to a mirror and I look in there, and then I can do something about it. And so when you look at the Bible, it says when you look into the perfect law of freedom, that's how it describes the Bible. It says then you can go and it gives you something meaningful to do that will help you change your life and find your place and be the person you were intended to be and find your part in the story. I want to give you an example. I'm going to look at a passage out of the Bible and talk about how you can see yourself in it and what it can mean. So here's an example. In Luke chapter 12, supposing you're reading this for the day, this is what you open the Bible and you read. And you read something like this, and you've got to read it slowly, and you walk away and you think about it, and you ask questions about it, and let it sink into your life, and it becomes something that affects your behaviour. Here's the reading. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, this is Luke chapter 12, verse 13, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Now, there's so much to think about in that. I could talk about it for hours. I've been thinking about it all week, actually. So the man says, divide the inheritance with me. And you know how painful it is when there's injustice. Here's a brother who, his father's died, and one brother's got the responsibility. He's the executor, you might say, and he's not doing his job. And so the younger brother yells out from the crowd to Jesus, tell my brother to do his job. He's not giving me what's rightfully mine. There's injustice in the family. And you would think this is something that Jesus would jump on. He's a person who loves justice, and he wants to see, things sorted out and made right. But he doesn't do anything in this case. He says, that's not the issue. He says, the issue you've got to think about is, well, first of all, he declined the offer. It probably was important, but not something that Jesus was going to get involved in. It would have involved hearing both sides of the story, would have been a long drawn out case. He decided he wouldn't do it. And then he says, but think about this. What sort of person are you? What sort of reaction are you having to this situation? That's what really matters. What does your life consist of? What are you living for? And he says, you've got to be very careful in situations like this. You can be overcome with greed. Greed can step up, and all you think about is the money. If I had that money, I'd be right. If I had that money, I'd be happy. And Jesus says, no, you can be happy without that. Your life does not consist in the abundance of your possessions. And then he goes on and he tells a story about a man who thought that if he had enough money, everything would be well, and he lived for the wrong thing. And then he tells this other story where he says, look at the ravens. Look at the ravens. They don't care about things like that. It's like Judith Wright's poem about the birds. The raven is trustful. It knows that it will be okay. It just lives. Why don't you be like that, knowing that your Heavenly Father cares for you, says Jesus. He says, and live for something more important. He says, seek first the kingdom, and everything else will be added to you. Now the kingdom, of course, is sort of biblical shorthand for the time when God gets the world working the way it's meant to be. Work for the world to be like it ought to be, where there's justice and peace for all, and everybody is cared for, where there's compassion for the rich and poor alike, where people's sins are forgiven, and everybody can live in harmony with the natural world. That's what he means by seek first the kingdom. And you do it by getting right with God and getting your life sorted out. Living with the character and the values that God wants to make in your life. So he says, watch out for greed. Your life does not consist of possession. Think about the fact that the Bible is a story and not a rule book. Is that you mustn't absolutize a story like that. You don't say that, take that and say, therefore, we should never resolve family conflicts. Therefore, we should never get people to read the wills. It isn't like that. This would be the word, which is relevant and helpful for now. And you think about that and what it might mean now. The next time you're reading the Bible, you might come across a story that says the opposite. It talks about advocating for the poor, or advocating for the person who's in a position of weakness. Or it talks about laying down your privilege and serving other people. So the Bible has many, many aspects to life. It just places you into the story, and it gives your life a sense of purpose and meaning. So I really hope that our generation rediscovers the Bible, because it does help them to find what they're living for. It helps us to find our place in the world. It gives us a sense of purpose and meaning. The Bible, it's got to be read the right way. It's got to be read kind of loosely, with joy and with hope, because it's a story that has a future. And if we try and read it as too scientifically or too literally or too absolutely, we'll get confused and we'll end up rejecting the whole thing. But if you read it the way it's meant to be written, to place you in the story and give you a sense of meaning and purpose, it could just be the thing that helps you to find your place in this world and your purpose.